In business today, three things to know. First, a bruised McDonald's cooks up a turnaround recipe. Is it one that shareholders will stomach? Then, Fiorina is in. The former CEO of Hewlett-Packard will seek the Republican nomination for president. So will neurosurgeon Ben Carson. How these two big-name non-politicians could shake up the race. And Arise News wins an Emmy for its special on the Harlem Globetrotters. We'll speak with the son of one of its top players about how star African-American players were treated so unfairly and how far the game has come. Arise Xchange starts now. Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew Schmertz. We'll have the business news of the day in a moment. But first, one of the men believed to be responsible for a Texas shooting may have ties to ISIS. On Monday morning in Garland, Texas, two men opened fire at a controversial event that featured cartoons of the Muslim prophet Muhammad. Rise News correspondent Akhtar Khan brings us now up to date. Good afternoon, Akhtar.
Thanks very much indeed, Andrew. Well, what we know so far from the FBI is that Elton Simpson is the man identified as the links with ISIS, and his roommate Nadir Sofi was just named by the FBI in the last hour or so. But let's just go back to Simpson. Simpson had links to ISIS. He tweeted that he was going to carry out the attack on the center here at on Sunday night at Garland in Texas, and he also had, if you like, the links that he tweeted about go back quite some time, because he does have form in terms of conviction for terrorism charges as back as 2007. But apparently then the judge said that the authorities failed to see there was any connection, that he was going to abscond to Somalia to join another terrorist organization. So he was given probation, but he was on the FBI terror watch list. And we do know from that, though, obviously he and his roommate, as I said, was Nadir Sofi, both carried out the attacks. Both men now dead.
Okay, Akhtar, you'll have complete coverage a little bit later on Arise America at 7 p.m. Eastern. Thank you. This week is full of economic numbers on the U.S. economy. On Tuesday, we get the trade report. On Wednesday, mortgage applications will give us a heads up about the housing market. And on Friday, the big jobs report for April. Ahead of all this, the markets did move higher. Let's take a look at the final numbers. The Dow finished the day up 46 points to 18,070.40. The S&P 500 up 6 and change, and the NASDAQ up a fraction of a percent. Some of the top stocks we're watching today: AMC Networks, the cable channel behind the hit series The Walking Dead, reported quarterly income that rose to $121 million. The company says an increase in advertising sales and affiliate fees pushed its revenue higher. AMC up nearly 4 points. Cablevision managed to report a boost in revenue despite a big drop in its subscribers. The company says that about 28,000 video subscribers were lost in the first quarter. That's more than the 14,000 that it lost a year earlier. This is a big deal for all cable companies as they are concerned about people cutting the cord and going elsewhere. Cablevision, CVC, up just a nickel. And less than 2 weeks after the deal with Time Warner Cable was put to bed, well, it was actually killed, Comcast reported a profit of just over $2 billion, or 81 cents a share, up from $1.87 billion, or 71 cents a year earlier. Comcast up 37 cents. And a look at commodities: gold up $13.50, oil down 21 cents. New orders for U.S. factory goods recorded its biggest increase in 8 months in March. The Commerce Department says new orders rose by 2.1% over a higher demand for transportation equipment. The woman who once ran Hewlett-Packard wants to run the United States. Carly Fiorina says she will seek the Republican nomination. Two big names joined the race this weekend: Fiorina and neurosurgeon Ben Carson. Fiorina is arguing that the nation needs a business leader and not a politician. John Burnett, strategic advisor to the Republican Party of New York State, joins us now. And welcome to Arise News. Great to have you here, by the way.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Well, we've heard this argument before. I'm a business leader. I know how to run a country. We've heard that certainly from Romney. Why is she in a better position than he was?
Well, she has a proven track record. She started off as a secretary, so she can connect with people. I mean, there's a lot of people that wish they would actually get an opportunity like she had in terms of entry-level position and work her way up in a 15-year period to run the top 50, one of the top 50 companies in the U.S.
She has a track record, but that track record at HP was very mixed. She eventually got booted from the job. She said she didn't fire enough people fast enough, is one of her famous quotes. But she did is credited with turning around the company, which was on the verge of collapse.
Absolutely. She doubled top-line revenues during her tenure. Cash flows quadrupled, which had a corresponding positive effect on the growth rate, which also quadrupled. So that she has a stellar record in terms of return for shareholders. Anyone that has a vision that requires change leadership, making tough decisions, is not going to be received well. But let's not forget her track record. She's done extremely well for HP. In fact, during her tenure, they registered on average 11 new patents per day. So that's innovation, and America needs innovation. America needs jobs. America needs to get back on track.
Yeah, what does this mean for Hillary Clinton, for example? I mean, can we see a woman versus woman presidential race?
That's likely. We'll see what happens.
Do you like Carly's chances here, by the way?
Absolutely. In fact, the thing is, we should not be looking to hire the most popular person. We should look at what the person brings to the table. Again, Carly brings a record of proven business results. And in fact, when we look at our debt rating in the U.S., it increased 80%. I think she has the financial wherewithal. The business acumen to make sure that we can get America back on track.
But the hit's going to be she has no foreign policy experience. She has no legislative experience. She has no experience in government, and that the presidency is not an entry-level job.
Well, I think when you look at it, when you look at Hillary's record, she was a senator for 8 years. She didn't pass one piece of legislation. And when we look at the fact of her foreign policy experience, she went on a grand tour to raise money for her own foundation. So I don't call that experience either. So when you look at a person that has proven results, I think Carly, as well as the other people that's in the race on the GOP side, have a fair chance.
Where does she fit in as far as the party's overall philosophy on social issues, business issues, et cetera? Is she going to be an alternative to some of the social conservatives?
I think she's definitely put her faith out there. She's a strong Christian. She comes from a strong Christian background. In fact, her husband Frank actually experienced a tough tragedy within their household, losing their daughter to breast cancer. So she definitely understands a lot of social issues and a lot of things that people need, everyday working people need. So I think she'll make a connection.
Okay. John Burnett, thank you so much.
Thank
we'll
you.
have you back on as this election unfolds.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Coming up, a new jobs initiative from the president and how major U.S. companies are bringing jobs home from overseas. You're watching Arise Exchange.
The best way to predict the future is to create it.
There's a special breed of achievers out there that are called tomorrow's people, the highly creative ones who live in the future. They imagine what will be and strive to make it happen. They're bold. They refuse to wait for the future. Tomorrow bends and conforms to their ideas. At Access Bank, we share the same sentiments. We've been able to grow our bank to become a leading player in Nigeria with a strong presence across the continent, adopting best practice in everything we do. Our mantra for success is simple: speed, service, and security. Those who shape tomorrow, strive for, and demand perfection. At Access Bank, our service culture of speedy response and drive for excellence is the blueprint for creating customer experiences that will echo for generations. Come, let's work together and take tomorrow.
Welcome back to Arise Exchange. McDonald's new CEO is on a Big Mac attack, taking aim at the company's culture, finances, and even its iconic food. Its new CEO announcing how the company, which has been struggling in recent years, will turn around its business. McDonald's will start by reorganizing international operations, increase the number of franchises to over 90%, cut spending, and improve the quality of its food. Joining us now by phone from Santa Barbara is Tom Perko, president of BevMark, a food and beverage consulting firm. Tom, welcome back to Arise Exchange. Good to have you on, as always.
Another turnaround plan, once again.
Once again. Well, let me ask you something.
This reminds me of the that phrase at Wendy's, where's the beef?
Yeah, well, I'll ask you about this in a moment, Tom, but shouldn't their turnaround plan focus on improving the food?
Well, there's a fundamental problem here, and it comes right down to the business model. This is a quick-service restaurant, meaning that it is cheap and it's fast. you start improving the food, the first thing that happens is your costs begin to zoom. Your business becomes much more complicated, and people are standing in line or waiting for who knows how long in a drive-through window. So how do they do that? It's, again, you have to change almost your entire business model to compete with all the new fast casual dining operations that are stealing their business.
Yeah, and certainly in areas of the Northeast, for example, it's getting squeezed by sort of high-end burger places, Shake Shack, for example. So if it can't dramatically improve its food for the reasons you said, can it change its business model to work?
I think that's going to be really hard, and I think it's going to take a long time. We're not dealing with food here. We're dealing with very deep-set images of a business that really is of another time. I mean, people went to McDonald's and still go, but teens and adolescents and young adults are beginning to think about other things. They're not going there for the same reasons. There's very little excitement. You know, we had to smile this morning when we heard them saying that they're now the Progressive Burger Company, and you know, we wondered, you know, where the hell then do all the conservative Republicans go? The Progressive Company. Maybe they're probably.
I don't think they're using progressive in that phrase, Tom.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. But again, you can stretch out all kinds of concepts and brands and change locations, but that doesn't mean you're different. And they have to enter into something and seize upon the trends that are taking everyone somewhere else. I mean, this is still a business that's purveying sugar, fat, and salt in a very simplistic way at a very cheap price, and that's just not where people are right now.
Are people embarrassed to go to McDonald's? I mean, when I kind of go in there, I kind of try to get my food and go quickly. I don't want to be seen because it just feels like something so unhealthy to do, even though I am willing to have plenty of other unhealthy food.
Yeah, you were the guy with the paper bag over his head when I last drove by. Yeah. To be honest with
That's how I anchor the show.
It's not that. It's that people are they're not even jaded anymore. They're bored. They go there, and it just doesn't have the kind of value where at one time there was a little bit of excitement to it. Now, you can only stuff so many burgers and fries into people's faces. You know, I mean, there's more to this business as their competitors are showing.
And I also want to.
They're getting better value. Cheap and fast is something that McDonald's can't seem to adapt to.
Tom, I want to ask you one final question. They want to increase the percentage that are owned by franchisees to over 90%. Is this saying we don't want to be in the operations business anymore? We want to be a marketing company?
It's economics. You kind of lay it off on them, but you're still basically in charge. And I apologize for the paper bag over your head. That was cruel. I'm sorry.
That's okay. A lot of people have said worse about me even today. Tom Burko, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, time now for our business ticker. Stories making headlines across the nation and the world. It's deal or no deal for Greece, and officials say they are close to an agreement. Greece must pay almost 1 billion euros to the IMF by May 12th and says it plans to make that payment. Eurozone leaders are demanding Greece implement further reform measures, including labor deals and pension cuts, before Greece gets a promised 7 billion euros in additional bailout money. President Obama came to New York City today to announce a new initiative that offers opportunities to young minority men. The president is spinning off a new version of the My Brother's Keeper program. John Legend, Shaquille O'Neal, and Colin Powell are among the celebrities in the group that is aiming to eliminate inequality for young black and Hispanic men. Russian President Vladimir Putin is going into competition with the International Monetary Fund. Russia has created a new development bank to serve the BRICS countries. That's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. The Russian president has set up a $100 billion reserve, which will finance development projects in those emerging economies. And free tuition for 120,000 workers. That's what Fiat Chrysler is offering. Just like Starbucks, the company is using the initiative to attract and retain talent. The company is struggling with up to 60% annual employee turnover. Students can take courses online or on campus to work around office hours, and they won't have to spend money from their own pocket. Made in the USA. It's hot again. The number of jobs that are coming back to the U.S. or starting here for the first time are at record highs. 60,000 manufacturing jobs were added to the U.S. in 2014 compared to 12,000 about 11 years ago. Harry Moser, Reshoring Initiative president, joins us now to tell us more about the trend in the increase in manufacturing jobs in the U.S. Harry, welcome back to Arise Exchange. Good to talk to you again.
It's great to be here.
What is driving the return of jobs back to the U.S.? Just last week, GM announced that it will invest nearly $5.5 billion in plants right here in the U.S.
The auto industry is certainly important because both GM is investing, Ford is investing, I suspect Chrysler is too, but also the German and the Japanese and the Korean companies are investing, foreign direct investments, so investments here by foreign companies. So the automotive industry leads both the reshoring list and the foreign direct investment list by a big margin.
When NAFTA was passed, everyone said all the jobs would go to Mexico and elsewhere, and the trend was in that direction for a while. Is this now an example that NAFTA is actually working?
I'd say no, because there's roughly as much investment going into Mexico as there is going into the United States, and in a much smaller country, because Mexico still has the labor cost advantage and it has better trade connections to a lot of countries and can export without tariffs, whereas we'd have to pay tariffs to get our cars in. So I do not think it's proof of the effectiveness of NAFTA.
Okay, so what is driving this back to the U.S., and are there specific areas of the country that are benefiting more than others?
Yeah. Certainly the largest sort of macro factor is that the wages in China have been going up at about 15% per year expressed in dollars for the last 15 years. So the cost gap, the labor cost gap between the U.S. and China has closed dramatically, to the point where the companies now can say, now it makes sense to calculate the duty and the freight and the carrying cost of inventory and the intellectual property risk, all these other factors, and now that labor cost gap is small enough that those other factors in many cases add up to a bigger number, and therefore it makes sense to come back.
And also, is there anything to be said that these other countries where these jobs went, they have increased their regulations, meaning the regulatory burden is getting heavier there. So if you're going to deal with regulations, you might as well deal with them here?
Our regulations instead of their regulations. Huh? So yes, it's true that theirs are growing, but they're coming up from a low base. And like I've heard that China has as tough regulations as we do, but they just don't enforce them. Mm-hmm. Whereas here we have tough regulations and we absolutely enforce them. So it's clear that the regulatory burden is smaller in most of those other countries, but growing.
We have a chart here of companies that are leaders in creating jobs here in the United States. Anything that sticks out about these jobs? Walmart adding over 2,500 jobs. GM, we just talked about 1,800 jobs. Apple returning more jobs back to the United States.
To me, Walmart sticks out because they've committed over a 10-year period ended with 2022 to bring back $250 billion with a B dollars worth of U.S. product, and that, from our calculation, that represents something like 300,000 manufacturing jobs.
In the U.S., there are a lot of plants and factories that were shut down over the last few decades. Are you seeing the infrastructure of these plants being rebuilt, or are there brand new projects?
Both are happening. I've read a series of articles saying that the vacancy rates in industrial properties are at the lowest level in the last 15 or 20 years. So, and as a result, additional properties are being produced. So people are fixing up the old ones and occupying them and building new properties.
Harry, of course, a lot of jobs left over the last few decades. So how do we make sure that trend doesn't reverse itself again and the jobs now go overseas?
I'd say the key, first key is skilled workforce. We have to train relatively more tool makers and precision machinists, even if we don't have quite as many TV and radio announcers.
That's good for me.
Because our skilled workforce doesn't have the quantity, the quality, the training that, say, the Germans have. Okay. And that's the key difference between the success of their economy and the relative failure of ours.
It's also the education system. We pushed people away from vocation schools.
Exactly. I call it professional school.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Much easier to attract them.
Harry Moser, Reshoring Initiative President. Thank you so much, as always.
Thank you, Andrew. Bye-bye.
Coming up, Airbnb guests from hell are our favorite people of the day. You're watching Arise Exchange.
There is a reason Africa is called the new frontier. What was once potential is now an opportunity ready to be seized. Once revered for our resources, Today's wealth lies in our people. People who build the cities that shape the future. People who know an idea in one place means business in another. A generation for whom technology means there are no borders, no boundaries. We are the new lions in a brave new world, kings of the urban jungle. And there's a bank that puts the world in our pocket and the future in our hands. UBA, Africa's global bank.
Time now for our favorite person of the day, when we pick one person who grabbed our attention and not for the right reasons. Today, who else could it be other than the welterweight champion of the world? Floyd Mayweather's reputation as being a truly terrible person did not take it on the chin following Saturday's title match in Las Vegas. After Mayweather defeated Manny Pacquiao, he lived up to that reputation. He bragged, quote, "The check has 9 figures on it, baby," talking about his $100 million payday. But Mayweather refused to let anyone take a picture of it, though he is known for posting such checks on his social media accounts. Mayweather's total take for landing a few punches could total $180 million when all the pay-per-view money is counted. A history of Mayweather's behavior as an upstanding citizen? Well, he's been accused of beating up 5 women, including one attack in front of his son. When asked if he's been to Africa, he's replied, "What has Africa done for me?" When Mayweather was asked if he donates money to charity, he replied he donates it to Floyd Mayweather. Mayweather also said he plans to walk around Las Vegas with a sack of $250,000 and shower the money on the strippers of Las Vegas. And so Floyd Mayweather may be a winner in the ring, but he is also our favorite person of the day. Coming up, how the Harlem Globetrotters overcame inequality and racism to become legendary players. You're watching Arise Exchange. Stay with us.
The search continues for the more than 200 abducted schoolgirls.
Unquestionably, this is a Nigerian problem.
President Barack Obama stopped short of visiting the border. Why can't Washington get anything done when it comes to immigration reform?
But you got to come up with a solution to it, and no one has a real solution.
Does this further terrorize people, make them more afraid, or is this making people angry? Hello and welcome to Arise America. I'm Debbie Turner-Bell.
One of the great things about Arise Entertainment 360 is we have this Arise to Your Health segment, which really focuses on the holistic approach of being healthy. So we do everything from working out to juicing to getting in shape by doing fun exercises like bouncing on a trampoline or wearing these bouncy boots on our feet when we're jumping all over the set. We've done karate, we've danced the weight off, we've done just about everything. And of course, I love when we eat on set, but we do it in a very healthy and clean way.
Today is a very special and proud day here at Arise. We are celebrating our first Emmy Award for the Arise News documentary, Game Changers, How the Harlem Globetrotters Battled Racism. This Arise News special takes a look at the early days of professional basketball and how the Harlem Globetrotters not only dealt with racism, but helped change the world of sports. And we have 2 very special guests here to weigh in. One is from the Globetrotters from the 40s and 50s, Carl Green. Also joining us is Mark Johnson, the son of another Trotter, Andy Johnson. Mark is the author of Basketball Slave, the Andy Johnson Harlem Globetrotter story. Welcome, gentlemen. It is a huge pleasure to meet both of you. You know, growing up in New York, I don't know anybody who did not go to Harlem Globetrotter games. But I don't think any of us who watched the games understood what you guys went through on the court and off the court. There was a real discrepancy between what it was to be a black player and a white player.
Definitely so. You know, the white players that we played against, most of them were college All-Americans. And the NBA only had 8 teams. So a lot of players couldn't play in the NBA because, you know, all players were white. And so they would travel playing against us. And in those days, you know, in the South and different places, a lot of prejudice. So some of the players that we played against used to try to play hard enough to beat us. And the game was like, we would play the game, and you play hard as you can. And then at the last part of the game, we put on a show. So what happened, my years, they thought that they would outplay us, you know, to show people that they could beat us. And a lot of physical things happened during those days.
And what was important to note is that while it was a show, the games were legitimate.
Right.
Both teams were there to win.
Right.
And my understanding is, from what I understand, white teams did not always want to play you. You had to bring teams with you.
Right. Right. You know, they traveled, and Abe Saperstein paid them to travel with us in the South and different places, you know.
My understanding, you talk about your father's experience a little bit. The teams, the players were treated completely differently on the court and off the court. And how did that make them feel?
Well, I mean, how anyone feel by being treated differently, but I think it was even more so simply because these guys were the headliners. So how could you treat the headliners worse than you would treat the other teams or even the halftime acts that would perform?
Were you surprised when you started writing this book? Were you surprised at the inequality?
Absolutely, absolutely. It was unbelievable. This actually started, you know, I started this project by, you know, my father had a pension. The NBA created a pension for NBA players. And let me make note, there's nothing set aside for these guys that play. But NBA players, and when I start investigating, because I didn't take everything for word from my father. He said I listened, but I went and investigated everything that he told me. And when I start uncovering pretty much how he was treated, how these guys were treated, and how America looks at the Harlem Globetrotters, I was appalled. I got angry. I think I went through every range of emotion when I found this information out.
Do you think today's NBA would look like it does today without the Globetrotters, without what you did?
No,
no,
not at all.
And do you think the current NBA players understand that and respect that?
No.
No.
Do you talk to them and try to educate them?
No.
No. Well, I can say that I have tried to reach out to both NBA corporate and NBA properties and NBA and Harlem Globetrotter organizations to let them know that these guys, the guys that paved the way, that set the groundwork, are still out here. And, you know, they should be treated as much as respect from, you know, the Tuskegee Airmen or any other ambassador or someone that paved the way for organizations today.
Carl, you work in the community right now, and you work in working with kids on basketball. Tell me what that's like.
It's not on basketball. It's just for my community where I grew up. A friend of mine, we started a foundation called Our Children Foundation. So we've had it like 43 years, you know, helping kids, raising kids, and trying to teach them to get the education and how to mingle with people, you know. So been doing that for 42 years.
What do you want to see change differently? Do you want to see some sort of a formal establishment of what the Globetrotters meant? Should there be an NBA Hall of Fame? Should they be there?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much a few years ago, they put in the Harlem Globetrotters in the Hall of Fame. But when that happened, they put a whole team in. That's like putting a whole team that's in the NBA. These guys were individuals. They were individual. I mean, they put them in individually one by one, but they really don't put these guys where they're supposed to be. And I think the NBA and the Harlem Globetrotter organization should still reach out and help these guys. And that's part of what I've been trying to do for the last few years.
Do you stay in touch with your teammates?
The few that are left.
Yeah.
It's only maybe 6 or 7.
Do they feel like they're starting to finally get the credit they deserve?
No.
No.
No, not at all. No, not at all.
No.
I mean, literally, one of the things that we've been trying to do is just, again, knock on the doors and let other, whether it be current NBA players, former NBA players. Now, there are NBA players that played between 1950 and 1960 that know about these guys because either they played against them or coached or something along those lines.
Mark, Carol, thank you so much. An honor to meet both of you. Thank you.
Thank you
I'm
so
Andrew
much.
Schmertz. Thanks for watching Arise Exchange. See you tomorrow.